This is a Camry like never before. While the old ones were boring, run-of-the-mill sedans, often described in Malaysia as an uncle's car, this new one is sporty and exciting. I mean, just look at it. I can't believe the Camry now looks like this. It's a night and day change for the long-running model. Now with slim LED headlamps, huge gaping grille, hatchback-like rear profile, and an integrated rear spoiler design, no one can say the Camry looks boring anymore. But that brings a problem. The same uncles driving the old Camrys, I don't think they can accept this car's new looks. It's too different, too wild, too young. I mean, think about it. If a young guy drives an old Camry, you'd assume he's driving his father's car. If an uncle drives this, you'd think he's driving his son's car. In any case, the Camry, or rather the entire D-segment sedan market, is under fire from all sides now. It's a shrinking market, almost to the point of being extinct, which is a far cry from, say, 10 years ago when you see Camrys and Accords everywhere. Company car buyers are shifting more towards SUVs, especially the Honda CR-V and Mazda CX-5s, while those who insist on having sedans, they now have proper compact executive sedans as alternatives. Things like the BMW 3 Series or the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, with some discounts you can get those for under 200,000 ringgit. And unlike the old CKD car, this new Camry is now fully imported CBU from Thailand, and it costs 190,000 ringgit. So the Camry is a hard sell. It's perhaps too different to what its target customers would like. There's no affordable 2-litre variant, and the market itself is getting smaller and smaller by the minute. So what it needs to do is sell based on its dynamic appeal and technology. For dynamics, this car sits on the latest Toyota TNGA modular platform. It's the third car to have it after the Prius and the CHR. It's supposed to make it stiffer, 30% more rigid, lighter with a lower center of gravity, and much better handling than before. The rear suspension is also all new, a proper double wishbone setup instead of the old multi-links for better flexibility and better control. As for technology, it gets the full Toyota Safety Sense suite. This includes autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, active lane keep assist, automatic high beam, and blind spot monitors. There's even a tyre pressure monitoring system that not only checks your 4 tyres, but also the spare in the boot. Now that's thoughtful. Inside, it's not like any other Toyotas you're familiar with. The dashboard is driver-centric, with the center console here tilted slightly towards the driver. The seats are mounted much lower than before, so you get a much more sporty driving feel from behind the wheel. Not what you expect from a Toyota Camry, but for a change, I quite like this cabin. Firstly, there's a lot of premium touches to lift it beyond most of its competition, be it sedans or SUVs. The materials here are just really good. From up there to down here, it all just screams quality. And this is a Toyota, so you expect them to last for a long time. Looking beyond build quality, the Camry has a lot of premium equipment too. It has electric steering adjustment, which is something most BMWs still do not have in Malaysia, and a really good heads-up display. There's also a wireless charger for your phone, plus a hidden compartment below. But it's not all that great because I do have quite a few issues with this dashboard. Number one, this wood trim here looks really tacky, and this fake leather on the center armrest looks like something I would see from a rundown taxi. Now, the JBL sound system, they do sound good, but the A-pillar tweeters look really cheap. And then we get to the 2 screens, which are both low res. We live in a world where all used to Retina displays and 4K screens, so to have 2 screens that are both blurry and pixelated just doesn't look right. And speaking of phones, there's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto either. Thankfully, it's a typical Camry affair from back here, and that means there's a clear of space, especially legroom. Headroom could be better slightly, but that's because they're going for a more coupe-ish, slightly low roof. But beyond that, it's really great back here with very supportive seats with smooth and soft leather. On top of all that, you've got powered rear sunshades, manual window shades on the side over here, the usual aircon vents, plus powered ports down there. Another Camry staple is the shoulder switches on front here, so you can control the front seat as you're sitting in the back. I know the Proton X70 also has this, but the Camry adds on a collapsible front headrest, so you get a better view out. For rear passengers, the Camry is just the best in the business, bar none. Not so great is the boot though. At just under 500 litres with the full-size spare underneath, it's competitive against its class. But the rear seats can't be folded down at all, so it pales in comparison against SUVs. Still, as a sedan, the Camry claims to be much better to drive, so let's get behind the wheel now. The first thing you need to know about the new Camry is a slight disappointment. Basically, when it comes to the engine, it's a complete carryover from the old car. The same 2.5 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine. This engine makes 184 PS and 235 Nm of torque. And that's not the newer dynamic force engine that's available in other markets, such as, Thailand, where this car comes in. That new engine has 209 horsepower and 250 Nm of torque. So we're missing out on 25 horsepower and 15 extra Nm of torque. If you're used to driving a turbocharged car, this car will feel gutless. And that's mostly to do with the torque and where the torque comes in. The peak torque comes in well above the 3000, 4000 RPMs, whereas in turbocharged cars, you get the full torque more than 300 Nm of torque below, say, 2000 RPM. So you don't need to work the engine so much to get the full push from the engine. It's a little bit old school because this is a naturally aspirated engine, not a turbocharged engine. And whereas most of its competitors have moved on to smaller capacity turbocharged engines, which also save on road tax in our rudimentary road tax system. But hey, what you gotta do? Japanese prefer to do it in its own way, and the Camry suffers from it. But beyond that, beyond the initial sluggish acceleration, this car is actually just fine. Beyond 30, 40 kilometers per hour, it pulls really strongly. I'm a full throttle right now, and you don't hear so much of the engine, but the car really jumps forward. It's really nice. The pull, 235 Nm of torque, doesn't sound like a lot, especially when turbocharged motors do well over 350, almost 400 Nm of torque. But yeah, this car feels just fine. I wouldn't call it underpowered at all. Anyway, on to the dynamics of this car. Toyota says a lot has changed with this car. Whole new platform, TNGA, instead of some old, ancient 20, 30-year-old platform. And it really feels it. It feels more natural, it feels more dynamic. Its president, Akio Toyoda, said in a press conference a couple of years back that it's making Toyotas fun to drive again. And even in the Camry, it's a car that's related to old uncle cars. You can feel this shift. It really feels a lot more natural, a lot more fun to drive. The steering wheel plays a big role here. It's a lot more direct. It's still an EPS, so you can't say much in terms of the feel of it. It's not a patch on properly dynamic cars like the Ford Mondeo or even the new Kia Optima GT. It's still a few rungs below that. But as a Camry, as a Toyota, this is a big leap forward. Back to the powertrain. With the old engine, it's paired with an old gearbox. Here we get a 6-speed automatic instead of the newer 8-speed automatic that the Thais get in the 2.5. So it really is a little bit, of a downgrade, that is for sure. The 6-speed actually feels like more of a 4-speeder with 2 speeds of overdrive. So you get 4 very tightly spaced ratios and 2 very high ratios. That's only for highway cruising. So what you get is a car that really hangs on to very high revs before, say, 100 kilometers per hour, and then shifts to a much lower rev as it goes on the 5th and 6th gear. So on highway cruise, this car will save fuel, but on the city driving, as you accelerate along, this car will feel like it's struggling a little bit because the gear ratios are a little bit short. On to fuel consumption, a lot of people are saying a lot of things about naturally aspirated big engines. And you know what? This car may have an old school engine, but in terms of fuel consumption, it is fine. I've been driving this car for about 700 kilometers now, and I've averaged about 10 kilometers per litre. That's not so bad because my regular car is a similarly sized car, similar weights, and that has a 2-litre turbocharged engine, a Mercedes-Benz C-Class. And yet I struggle to get 8-9 kilometers per litre. So this car, despite having an old school 2.5 litre naturally aspirated engine, is doing better than my own regular car, so I'm not complaining. If there's one thing that the Camry does well, that is ride comfort. Every time you jump into a Camry, it will be a very pleasant experience. It might be boring to drive, it might put you to sleep behind the wheel, but you jump in, the ride's going to be comfortable, very smooth. And despite this car having a much better dynamic, it still keeps its very soft ride comfort, and that's a great thing. If anything, it's even better than before. The way it takes speed bumps especially is very, very commendable. I think this car has the best ride for any car that's priced under 300,000 ringgit here in Malaysia. As for refinement, again, the Camry does a very strong showing here. There's no wind noise at all, at least until you reach above 160 kilometers per hour. And as for road noise, there's almost none from the excellent Bridgestone Turanza tires. These are the latest T005 Turanzas, and the grip is excellent, even in the wet. And as for cruising ability, you can even go up to illegal speeds and there's not much tire roll. So the tires are really, really good. So as a whole, the Camry is a bit of a surprise to drive. The engine is a bit of a letdown, especially the old engine and the transmission, but the rest of it is impressive. The way it drives, the way the steering feels, and especially the way it rides bumps here in Malaysia, beyond reproach. So there you go, the new Toyota Camry. It looks wild, and the new sense of dynamism is real, not just marketing talk. The tech features as well as the premium touches, it's all on point, and together with a sublime ride quality, the new Camry is a lot better car than ever before. Strictly within its class, the Toyota Camry is an excellent choice. But in a real world where turbocharged SUVs are fast becoming the norm, it's getting harder and harder to make a strong case for the Camry, especially when it's saddled with the old powertrain like it is here in Malaysia. So the Camry is a bit of a mixed bag. For what it is, it's a fantastic car. It's just that I'm not sure how long this type of car will be relevant in the Malaysian market. For what it's worth, it's definitely not an uncle's car anymore, and for the Camry, that is a major breakthrough.